My name is Joy Alise. My pronouns are she, her. I am the president and executive director here at Imagine Black, and I am overjoyed that you are here. I know there's so many places you could be tonight, and I'm just appreciative of the space and the energy that you all are bringing. I have some welcomes, if that's okay with you all. Special thank you to the folks who are watching on live stream. Thank you for holding digital space with us. Okay, so I have a special welcome from a friend and comrade, Carlos Kareem Wildem. I'm gonna read it to you, bear with me, it's a good one. So here we go. I wanna hold space and extend a special welcome in no particular order to all Black people, African Americans, African, immigrants, Muslims, refugees, trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming folks, to femmes, queer folk, and all people of African descent and undocumented folks. To people living with disabilities, both invisible and visible, to renters, to low-income folks, to those who have been displaced or gentrified, to those who are far from home, whether by choice or circumstance, for those who have sent money back home, to the survivors, to the mothers, to the primary caregivers, to those previously incarcerated, to teachers, thank you for being here. And a special shout out to all the organizers in the room here today, both in person and digital. I see you and I thank you for all your hard work. In addition, I want to do a big thank you to our generous sponsors that helped us put on this event. So thank you, White & Kennedy. Thank you, ACLU Oregon. Thank you, Metro Regional Government. Thank you, Multnomah County's REACH program. And thank you, Schwabe, Wilson and Wyatt. I said it right. This law firm, thank you. I also want to thank the Portland Art Museum. I want to thank Sharita Town. I hope you got a chance to see her exhibit with the Black Art Ecology upstairs. Thank you for that labor and that work. I want to thank our amazing film crew. Thank you for holding us down. To our volunteers, to the staff, our contractors, our caterers, our event planners, everyone who made this possible. I see you, I thank you, and I appreciate you. I'm going to pass it to my amazing board member who's going to do some bios for you all. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. It's so beautiful to see faces. My name is Rosalie Lee, and my pronouns are she, they. And I am a Black Leadership Academy alum and currently serve as the board chair of Imagine Black Futures. I'm very excited to be introducing our guests tonight. We have Ekundayo Igeleke, a popular educator, culture worker, national strategist, and grassroots organizer and writer. He is currently Resource Generation's multiracial base building strategist and a co-founding chief and creative in chief of Culture Dream Lab. Ekundayo also is an executive board member of the Maroon Arts Group in Columbus, Ohio, a co-lead organizer with Black Men Build Columbus. Outside of taking radical action, Ekundayo loves spending time with his family, his village, watching anime, mixing music, eating Africana, Black vegan dishes, and reading 3 books at a time. I think that sounds like most of us, right? And our very own Joy Alise Davis is a multi-award-winning speculative collaborative design strategist. There's more to that. Democracy advocate living in Portland, Oregon. Ms. Davis is a founder and an award-winning design and culture lab, a research-driven and urban social enterprise that works at the intersection between identity and place. In addition to serving as the president, executive director of Imagine Black, she also teaches with a MFA in collaborative design and an MA in design systems at Pacific Northwest College of Arts. And now I want to bring on our live painter, Paola De La Cruz, to the stage, as well as our poet, Monet, to share her work with us.
Good evening, everyone. I said, good evening, everyone. I know I'm in a room with some breathing, living people, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is ask if all of you can come closer to the front. I'm going to ask with the most love, tenderness. I know you all want to be cool and inconspicuous in the shadows. Everybody want to be visible until it's time, right? They want to be invisible until it's time to be visible, and then visible. Those are reserved for y'all. The reserve was specially made for you. So come, please come, join me. In the Black radical tradition, we like to get cozy. We like to be among one another, to see each other, feel each other's energy in the space. Okay. All right. What an honor it is to be here with you all tonight. This is the first time I'm here reading in Portland. So it is a deep honor. Unfortunately, Robin could not be here with us today, so he said, knock him dead, you know. Had to hold space. But seeing as I was able to write the foreword, I thought it was appropriate that I read it here for you all today. And maybe some poems. I don't think I'm gonna read the whole thing, but I'm gonna read some of the parts I love. We'll see. When they say literature liberates, surely they were talking about freedom dreams. Maybe it was love. Maybe it was their dimples dancing, the way one girl wrapped her words around us like a loose hug, our bodies transformed by the rhythm. Or how a few organizers lay in the hammock swaying as another's guitar dripped in callous fingers. In the humid honey of June heat, a mango tree open-armed and waving sat deeply rooted in our little Haiti backyard. This is where a dream became freedom. Shades of sweat gathered beneath shiny brazen green leaves. The people singing, catching the breeze like a spirit. We were timeless and no longer fighting. A premonition or an image that felt familiar came like a shoulder tap in my heart's eye. We gathered there to hang and rest after a community organizing meeting. Everyone, for more than a moment, was present and alive and forever. It was sacred ground. We weren't arguing. We weren't triggered. We weren't overwhelmed with grief. A smoke signal of possibility, a place we could feel, touch, and see. I found a new way to write a poem, or, as Kelly writes, a way to transport us to another place. Where power seeks to obstruct and exploit language, Robin D.G. Kelley creates room for the unlanguageable. This book is a profound testament to the enduring dimension of our imaginations and the poetry of our organizing. 20 years later, the truths revealed remain relevant and necessary, especially in the thick, paralyzing despair of a global pandemic. Many are disconnected from one another, a people socialized on social media, constantly inundated with the gross injustices all over the world, and the final frontier of our movements becomes the mind. We are being initiated into the visions of those who have struggled before us: abolition, universal health care, global solidarity, and environmental justice. We are the dreaming. Freedom Dreams is a book that documents and contextualizes the political power of our shamanistic ability to feel and embody medicinal mythologies of how we resist. In the cadence of courage, these words are my belonging. It reflects the life I have made unbeknownst to me, a blue surrealist poet marooned in the movement for our being. Fueled by the radical movements of those who came before us, Kelly conjures the legacy of Barbara Smith, Jane Cortez, Amy Césaire, Queen Mother Moore, Amiri Baraka, Paul Robeson, Sun Ra, and so many others. We are what we are fighting for, right now. And as we demand presence and awareness, we are the freeing. Who are we without war, poverty, violence, police, and prisons? Who would we be if money wasn't our concern? If love was our currency, how would we distribute it? How do we value the unseen? I have spent my life traversing the tenses of time, the lettered language of the heart and mind, as our movement is busied by the struggle for our material conditions. I have obsessed over the immaterial needs of our people. Poetry is where I've gone to meet the edges of myself, to touch the currents and vibrations of our experiences and perceptions. I was carved out of the flesh and blood of Black people who breathe poetry. The pain of being here and nowhere, a cause to live our most intimate lives. We are the dreaming, an intervention organizing by way of presence. Years later, beneath that same mango tree, I watched Ntozake Shange glow back and forth in an old wicker rocking chair with a cigarette between her polished fingers like a wand. Her smile was an heirloom we all carried close. The last poet sipping cold brew, flirting with the past, leaning in the groove of now. DJ Rich Medina spinning the soundtrack to a dream manifest, conducting light in our hips and hands. The people were fed and full of imagination. Sonia Sanchez lecturing love in our living room with movement lessons. Inspired by the stories of African and indigenous ancestors who were driven to the swamps and developed sovereign communities during the horror of American slavery, we facilitated a collective of young poets who were also organizers as we created the Maroon Poetry Festival in Liberty City, Miami. I had no idea we were rehearsing for the vision of Kelly's closing chapter. We built a temporary stage made from wood pallets in Tukolsi Park with aspirations to design a solar-powered amphitheater, elders and young people together in harmony. The event was free and accessible, healthcare professionals on site taking blood pressure, healing hands offering massages, morning meditation and yoga, barbers donating their skills to cut the children's hair, tire swings roped around our trees. There was a huge flag with a North Star waving above the children's jungle gym. We built pop-up libraries, benches decorated with free books. We turned the children's workroom in the community center into an art gallery with local artists and vintage national Black treasures. We registered community members to vote in the upcoming state election and discuss the local politics of our time. We petitioned our people to help restore voting rights for 1.4 million Floridians who were formerly incarcerated. Huge banners of Emory Douglas posters billowed in the field as he discussed the revolutionary function of art with the people. It was surreal. We were more than our competing identities. We were organized in deep relationships with one another. Quote, "Surrealism is not some lost, esoteric body of thought longing for academic recognition," Kelly writes. "It is a living practice and will continue to live as long as we dream. Nor is surrealism some atavistic romanticization of the past. Above all, surrealism considers love and poetry and the imagination powerful social and revolutionary forces, not replacements for organized protests, for marches and sit-ins, for strikes and slowdowns, for matches and spray paint. We are one of the many echoes of Robin D.G. Kelly's words reverberating in the world. We are proof that his vision and argument are not only practical, but critical to our movement's possibility and power. Here we were, the dream defenders, supported by a small group of lawyers, the Community Justice Project, workshopping the poetic language for our political vision of another Florida a few years earlier. We called our socialist vision for our people the Freedom Papers. It was an unconscious nod to the Emancipation Papers given to escaped Africans upon their arrival to the Spanish colony of St. Augustine, Florida. Over 250 years later, we conjured Fort Mose, the first free black settlement in America, right in our backyard. Except we defined freedom for ourselves, the freedom to imagine and struggle for alternatives, freedom from police, prisons, and poverty, freedom of movement, freedom of mind, freedom to be. We spent many years using our literal home to facilitate workshops and nurture organizers in the efforts of decolonizing our imaginations. Language and how we use it is crucial to the vision for our lives. Kelly's book offers us our history so we can create with a clearer vision for our future. Sometimes we trip into our past as we endure the present, but freedom is always now. I'm gonna end there. So I'm bag lady because I always carry every single book I wrote in. And so usually in the tradition of the blues and jazz, we go with what we feel, what is intuitive. So I'm going to read intuitively for you all today. I don't know what poems will come, but the first poem I'm going to read that feel called to read is called Castaway. Is there some water up here? Is it over here? Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Give it up for Joy, please. Making all this happen. I did not want to write a poem full of corpses. So I wrote a sacred pink blue sky jeweled on the horizon, laughter as the loudest star sleeps, humor hugs every ache whole, how heavy heads lay after a long day in the humid heat, Caribbean moon sighs and joyous dreams. I did not wish to speak of what should not be spoken, so silence breathed into all the words, a haunting. I come from a language that does not write itself. Our ancestors speak hurricane, a thunder tongue shivering tides and a petty revenge. The mid-Atlantic is a vexed auntie, rattling rivers and roofs ready for reckoning, knocking at the chest of men. On the other side of now, there is a door where we return. Every island is a hip swaying between here and there, afloat in the dance to belong, rocking in the arms of the edge where the sea is an emerald flag and palm trees praise the air. Every shore is an altar of remembrance, embraced on purpose, picnic of the sun ray, where prayer trembles the light, or how a storm retreats. We marvel and move eternal, unforeign and unlost, hips hollering, elbows flapping like fanning flames, bare feet chant in the sand, or in a concrete jungle, love taps quake in the nape of the earth's neck, where daughters of diaspora dream and inherit journeys of flesh, where a smile is also a scar, or how my grandfather came to see about us years after he died, wearing my uncle's face, dimpled and shining eyes like two wet black beans baptized by a spirit, rum slapped on his breath, charming man and all he was, checking on his grandbabies. Fear not death. Fear not death. We visit kinfolk there, lingering in the blood where the ocean hums, tribe of the great abyss, and not knowing from where or what we come, and still to arrive before they could conquer us. We came by shipwreck, by wind and wave, pushed into the water, splashing and shaking. The wound teaches us to remember where tomorrow glows. Listen, listen to the animal clawing within. A rooster calls directions between this world and the next. There are roads that cannot be mapped, and there are streets that do not have names. We ran away into the ochre-tinted mountains, seeking maroon hills. I was born borderless, mounting a dollar van like an orchestra, scribbling visions on a train, on an airport, traveling ritual, voice, and time. I was born of distance, in between now and then. This next poem, it's okay. Y'all don't know what to do. Y'all confused. You're like, whoo. Yes, you know, we like the responses. Call and response. That's the church I come from. This next poem, let's see what else we're gonna do. There's a poem that I don't know if did I bring it? Oh, here it is. Okay. Oh, let me see, do I have it here? Yes, here it is. I believe it's here. I hope it's here. Oh, yeah. So I wrote a poem for a sister of ours in the struggle for liberation, freedom, dignity, justice, which is always really a love letter to our people. In the midst of the country in uprising around the murder of George Floyd that same summer, there was a young organizer and activist from Tallahassee, Florida, who was murdered after seeking safety and shelter after a protest. And she was raped and assaulted and killed. And this poem is dedicated to her. It is called, It Is Worthy to Give God Praise, which is the definition of her name. For Oluwatoyin Salau. Did I tell you they murdered my sister who was myself? This rerun of the worst episode in American history, tiptoeing. Again, I am fighting for someone who does not love me back. For true, as the words say, does not love they self or us. Numb, drunk, ego, black as my brother, he will not fight for me too. Until I'm a hashtag or caught on camera not talking back black, like a sit-in or a coffin shimmering in the grave of a meme, black, like a punchline, laughing at my busted lip. Everywhere I look, I am coarse, curl-colored, head wrapped, heavy with hurt, healing harmonica, dreaming of breath, called a kiss some places, is also a hug, some say. What is a movement that cannot hold us tender? What is a man that is not a man but a wound of weapon, broken and breaking, everyone near capable of loving more than themselves? If not sorry, always sorry. Unwilling to undo the work it takes to be luminous or infinite stargazing, lest we pay in sex or pleasure porn, my death, so sexy, I'm worthless alive. We will not survive this madness, this denial, this mirror that does not know its own face. Lovelessness cannot make a heart whole. We stay 1, 2, maybe 3 restorative circles away from all the backlogged rape kits gathering dust in the dirty drawers of our lovers. All the little girls in my voice gone missing, meet in my poems, thrifting the blues, unsilenced and worthy of mention. The revolution will be a resurrection of roads unpaved with good intentions. A tired waistline, a shower, a safe bed, a nightmare nesting, my obituary, the ceremony put to rest. Who will survive what survives us? Yeah. Here we go. Every media minute, America's hysterical hands drip blood. A pointing finger uninward, the people scroll over bodies, wet dreams of war. We want to believe we aren't dying too, and the joy is sad, and the art is sadder. When will we live, we think, in words? And I am a sound. They tell me love is hard work, but why does it come so easy? I haven't clocked in. I don't want this love to tire or go on strike for better wages or lose itself in a bottle at a lonely bar. I am tired of protest. Everything here is a job, even love. And that is how I know. That is how I know they have trained us to become what we loathe, to desire what disguises us, to be the executed and the executioner. I had a friend who had a friend, and they are no more. He was so busy being himself, he couldn't try just being for a change. Maybe if we market love like a selfie, or maybe offer a stimulus package for feelings we don't allow ourselves to feel, maybe then we can communicate. To be honest, or at the very least, we can laugh at the hypocrisy of our silly predicament. Insanity is the father of invention. He's a rolling stone. The Christians are clinging to their God more than ever before. Rickety religions reveal rickety men. Been there, done that. I want a God no American can worship. I want a God who doesn't want to be worshiped, who isn't insecure or condescending, who doesn't put borders around heaven. I want a God who smuggles souls past patrol officers' sins, seated in the trunk of his 4-door chest, thundering down walls. I want a God who returns prayers to sender, who laughs with or at us. I want a God who gives back what was stolen. I want a God who laughs at us and our prayers. I want a God who returns the prayer to sender. I want a God who loves. You know, when you realize you missed a line, you're like, oh, wait. I got to make it sound really cool. Give that a little pause. This poem is a poem that I like because I was asked to do it for Flying Lotus has a record, his last record, and in the record, my poem is inside, and it's made like this interesting pattern. So this poem, he asked me if I would write for his project, and this is the poem. I was born eternal on the dancing tongue of a flame. Drizzled in mountain air, we fortified our spirit in the fire. Folklore foot drums, mystical labored pains of the soul, crickets candlelit in the foreground, a griot guardian of the crossroads. With the blessing of music, we paid homage to the dead and burned the devils in the dust of ourselves. Truth illuminated the people. Smoke swirled signals reveal who we fear in our facing. Ritual rinses hurt. Rattling revolution kindled in the darkling, hushed. We've always known passions other than warfare. Gathered tribe in the smell of a storm singing. Baptized maroon mouths, smoldering, glowing ancestors whistling, a sun setting within, where the town sleeps like a wing and dreams are altars, shining shrines, ancient, flaring and luminous. I listened to the earth talk, and rage became reason, the dance between heal and harm. Love is the choreography of catastrophic tenderness, the journey between lightning touch and evening star. Okay, I was trying to think of my love poem, so that's where I'm running. I'm gonna give you like 2 more and then I'm gonna close out for this talk, okay? Just trying to find, I know we don't got much time, so let's get to where we got to go. Don't tell me that, because we're gonna be here all night. Let me see. Maybe I'll do. Why my love? My love be a front line, a riot. My love be a fighter, a shade that sisters and saves. My love survived the middle passage, waded the waters. My love be grassroots, organizes movements, the birds, the bees. My love be butterflies beaming. My love be indigenous, ocean wide, sky deep. My love listens to the land, all natural, no preservatives. My love be homemade. From the scratch, scribbled, handwritten notes, adoration, be scripture, ritual, baptism, revivals, a cathedral built from bare hands, a Taj Mahal, all the temples. My love creates new ways to worship. Serenity, sorcery, hieroglyphs across your chest, tongue-tied. My love be sacred geometry, past life premonitions, revelations and gratitude, prayer hands. My love be call and response, praise the eyelashes and the eyes. My love be a river, like the Nile, ancient and long. My love be a crowd of shyness, secret messages in the rosy red of deep dimples. My love be a reflection, a looking glass, magic, a song we only dance to. My love make no excuses. My love be compassionate, forgives but not stupid, be backbone, be ass whooping accountable. My love be love, abundant, limitless, endless, giving, make no mistakes, lest they lessons. My love be book smart, Google ready, encyclopedic, soul listening, kindred twin flame, seeking, questioning, answering, demanding, aggressive, hugging, consent, candle lighting, tarot card, psychic healing, intuitive. My love be brave, be heavy-hearted, lightheaded, woozy, clumsy, knee wobbling, butterfly belly dancing, floating and fluttering. My love be goofy, be silly, trusting, foreplay, aching, tempting to taste, to savor, weary, wounded, ridding, ghost. Some things cannot be saged but must be faced. My love be partnership, be collective, don't leave when things get tough, be flawed, stretch marked, pudgy, bold. My love squeezes pimples, tweezes ingrowns, memories. My love be a lighthouse in the middle of a storm, be light. Why every time we tell a man about himself, our love gotta come into question? Who said loving you would be a walk in the white section of the park? Who wrote the poems that made love into a doormat, doorbell, pornographic, wet dream, male gaze, nonsense, romance film? Who done turned love into a battle of the sexes? Say I can't love my man and tell him where it hurts or how, or when to stop and when to slow and treat me with kindness. Who say I can't teach you how to love me, how to tend to tug and touch, how to witness and watch? Who say love gotta humiliate me? gotta turn me into a victim, into a damsel in distress. If I could tell you about yourself to your face, I wouldn't have to speak to strangers. Why my love always gotta be in question, gotta go through tests and relay races, obstacle course, gotta hop on one leg and bark like a dog? Why my love gotta do backflips and learn rocket science and speak mansplain? Why my love gotta wait till you ready to love you? Why the world ain't got my back, and I always seem to have yours. Let's see, what is next? All right. It's always intuitive. Wow. Okay, all right. This poem I wrote in the middle of the very beginning. It was the first poem I wrote in lockdown. I mean, we still are dealing with a pandemic, viral pandemic that has affected all of us, but there's the pandemic of poverty, the pandemic of ignorance, the pandemic of neglect that's been going on for a very long time. And it made me think about, I hope that we do not go back to things the way they were. Feels like we are. Feels like we're getting very comfortable. People are still trying to race to the top, whatever top, I don't know. People racing to the top of a sinking ship. It sounds really crazy to me. But yeah, I think that we, you know, remember how humbling it was in the beginning? Everybody was, you couldn't stunt on nobody. What was you stunting, you know? You know, I got the best sanitized soap, whatever, you know? Look at me, you know? Everybody got checked for a second, and we saw that the workers, who the essential workers truly were in this country and across the globe. And it made me think about what it would look like if we democratized care. So, what does it mean to be considered, looked after, thought of, tucked in, held or wondered about, attended to, regarded as deserving of want or need, never alone in arms, another belonging, a heart horizon wide to friend, a ship with sails, harness the wind, lean and lay where a wound dreams, not a weapon or trigger to pull or peel. Pain is a rattlesnake whispering sweet nothings of forever the end, gazing back at you. Care is a voice with hands, trembling courage, a hold letting go. Here is a sip of love, warm and unspeakable music, opens a chest, clears a throat like herbal tea, homemade breath, crossing lung to lung, sharing air like a kiss, soft cough drop, soothing shame like the rhythm of uncontrollable laughter. When you are sick, it's the gentle gestures of grace, a song in the thick of grief, a lightened load of laundry, falling heavy on a shoulder. Care is a room full of listening. Care is familiar and thankless. While people hoard their nothingness, lounging in despair, the earth cleanses itself of greed and cancer clinging to her bones. Uncertainty rocks us to sleep, mouthing words of prayers, prayerless tomorrows, clutching pearls of market-driven identity, work-filled and empty. Everyone's chasing shadows on a conference call or in an email, but care is knocking on your door like abuelita waiting online for food stamps. Care has mouths to feed, wastes no words, is deliberate, and knows tomorrow's not promised. The way the ground carries your feet is a care, or how the dishes don't wash themselves. Care is inconvenient and intentional, like poetry pouring out anyway. Okay, I'm gonna end with this. I'm just so grateful to be reading poems with you all. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for listening to me. I mean, it's not lost on me that not too long ago, we didn't know when we would be able to do this again, And so I'm very, very grateful, especially for you weirdos. Anytime anybody gathers to listen to some poetry, I'm like, where do they make y'all? These days, So thank you for sharing in my weirdo obsession of words and language and the spirit of words. So it means a lot to me. This next poem I'm going to end on is a poem that I wrote earlier this year, and I'm learning how to embody it. Whatever touches your heart, feed, fuel, fight for it, flower, heal, hold, help, have, honor it, whatever. Whatever touches your heart, promise, hope, hell and high water, wade with it, shield, protect, keep it sacred, whatever, what touches you, your heart, a future inevitable as hurt. Let it wind through you. Be fiercely undone, bold, brave, and billowing, elbow and ankle, your shoulder your way. Will it as so, whatever it may be that fires the engine of your chest, sprawls open your thoughts of you, unminded and moved. Let it be, let it silly shame and show you out. Remember when, before memory made you hidden in the nameless nothing of now, let light lead you into the darling darkness of not knowing, yet to know what it is to feel alive, living, whatever it may be that touches your heart, that vibrating, hungry, heavy-handed heart, let it be luminous. Unleash the firefly, eager to be felt. Let it, just let. Thank you all so much for listening to me ramble poems. Oh, thank you. Thank you. That made me cry. I'm not gonna cry, not yet, okay? Y'all can't let me cry yet. All right, I think I'm gonna welcome up my guests, my fellow guests. Come on. Thank you, Portland.
Okay, I think I'm on. I want to show some appreciation for our amazing artists. She is putting in work, y'all. Paola, she spends her years in Dominican Republic, where she's from, alongside the warm sun and singing wind. She intervenes digital and analog media, pattern stitching, shape-based illustrations to invoke intimacy, while challenging the themes of cultural identity, coming of age, and interpersonal growth. I hope you get a chance to Google her. Like literally just Google. There are links on our website. Learn about her practice. She's fantastic. I want to say thank you for being here. Should I say some things? I'm going to pass it to our amazing moderator. Maybe I'm just going to pass the mic to you to start us off. Thank you for being here. This event was your brainchild, and I want to thank you for holding space and putting in work to make this happen. So, Ekundayo.
Peace, y'all. How y'all doing? Good. Thank you again, Aja. Let's just give it up for Aja again. Yeah? You know, when I think about the legacy of, Sonia Sanchez, June Jordan, those from the Black Arts Movement, that you have cemented our generation to be able to be a part of that legacy. So I appreciate your work. And I want to thank Joy, for your leadership. It's not easy running an organization. And so all of your creativity, your leadership, your labor, let's give Joy some love. It's not easy doing this. It's not easy doing this. So it's been 20 years since the publication of Freedom Dreams by Robin D.G. Kelley and the Black Radical Imagination. And it has been quite the pivotal piece of work. It has been, for myself, I'm Ekundayo, he, him, but it has been a truly pivotal piece of work in my own development as a human being, as my political development, my own evolution, how I see the work, how I do the work, how I imagine. And I think that our generation has really taken on this piece of work and deeply embodied what it means to freedom dream. So we're going to spend some time talking about that. I also want to talk about some of your work and your process, Aja. I would imagine that, Robin Kelley would not so much want us to focus on celebrating the book, but celebrating the work that has been happening and movement work and cultural work that has been happening in the last 20 years, right? Like that's what it's really about. And so we're gonna get into that, but I do want to start with your foreword, which is fire. I'm glad you read it. Do y'all enjoy that? Have y'all read that? If y'all haven't, go ahead and digest that. But yeah, the reading was fire too. So there's a piece in here you said, I just want to start with. So as our movement is busied by the struggle for our material conditions, I have obsessed over the immaterial needs for our people. Poetry is where I have gone to meet the edges of myself. I really, that bar, that line really spoke to me. We have in Columbus, I'm from Columbus, Ohio, and we have some young activists, poets that I've known for the last 8 years, twin girls. If you're watching this, but here in Nafisa, they're young ladies now. But your work has inspired a lot of young people to understand how art and movement work and organizing can't be separated. And I think you really explained that in your foreword. And so you also identify as a maroon blues surrealist, creative poet, writer. And so when you're ready, could you share a little bit about your process? How do you craft the work, particularly your writing and your poetry? Let's start there.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't know why, just hearing you read that brought up a lot of emotion for me. I You all are looking at someone that always dreamed of sitting right here and being able to be a testament to the legacy and the tradition of those who came before me. And one of the highest honors of my life is to be asked to have written this forward for Robin, because this book, it's like when you have a feeling and you know that, what you're doing is greater, or it feels just like it's what you're supposed to be doing. You don't know why. You don't know. Sometimes you see no sign of it being even worth doing, but you continue kind of maddened and obsessed with what you need to do. I mean, you can't do anything else, honestly, because you can't function. And so to have visited and revisited Robin's words, and to understand that part of who we are and the ways that we've moved in the world, that we're not isolated, that these struggles that we have and these things the things that keep us up at night, or the things that we wonder about, the things that we dream of, that somebody planted that in us. And that sometimes we think we're creating for ourselves, and it's humbling, because I have to, my ancestors have to slap me silly sometimes and remind me that it's not about you, there is something that calls you forth, calls you out of yourself at night, or in the middle of cooking, or in the middle of taking a shower, or you don't know what it is, but it's a remembering, it's a recollection, it's an initiation into a tradition. And so I think when you feel called, it's important to answer that call. And when you don't answer it, you'll see how your life goes. And so I think when you talk about a process, I struggle with sometimes feeling worthy of what has been bestowed upon me, of like the gift and the ability to write. And I think everybody has, let's keep it real, everybody has gifts. They just have to tap into them. I think there's so many of your elders who are speaking through you on a day-to-day. Just look at your hands. Just look at your hands and you can see your grandmother and your grandfather. Just look at your eyes. They're all with you all the time. And they show up in the funniest of ways, in the way your hip twitches, in the way that you lean your head back at the sun. There's so many ways that your loved ones show up to remind you that they love you, that they're here, that they dreamed you up. And if we got here, if we made it here, wasn't no weak ones that made it, right? You're not here because your ancestors was weak, or because, it was convenient, right? You're here because somebody loved you. All of us are here is because we all started but a baby. So I say that to say the process is very much, I've grown, I've had to learn to listen deeply and to listen differently, and to learn how to observe what is being shared when I'm listening, and to answer that call to share. And I think sometimes you don't always, it doesn't make sense. Most of the time, it doesn't make sense. I think the best parts of us don't make sense. So we're struggling to find the meaning in it. And as a poet, I think I'm always struggling with that, the mess of meaning and the ideas around why are we here, How do we love? How can we get, what does it mean to be free? Yeah, so it's an interesting process, but I'm gonna shut up now.
Yeah, for sure. The process, you know, that actually makes me a question. I want to bring Joy into the conversation too. No, I do actually, because what
Of
is?
course.
Yeah. No,
Keep
yeah, come in,
talking,
get
I'm
in
like,
on this. You talked about the journey, essentially, in many ways, right? Like there's many iterations of ourselves. You talk about your practice. The last piece was about, not the last piece, but one of the last, maybe it was the last piece, or the second to last piece. You talked about something you're trying to embody this more, this love, this practice, this, and I'm thinking about how long I've known you, Joy. You know, like almost teenager.
Yeah, we were babies.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about some of your beginnings, like in young adulthood, when you're figuring out like how you want to show up in the world, how you want to serve, how you want to show up for your people and yourself, you know, and that whole messy journey that it always is for all of us. I remember how inspired I was when you were teaching me about design. And I wanted to kind of take it back to bring it forward, because now, right, you're leading an organization that's about shifting power and bringing freedom essentially to Black people in this state. So can you talk about, you know, speculative design and community building and electoral work, and like how that, and you're creative too, you know what I mean? So talk about that journey and that particular process as well.
Yeah, thank you. I also want to say thank you for introducing me to this book. You probably don't remember, but Ekundayo gave me this copy or told me about this book. Yeah,
And your hair color is fly as
Oh.
hell. Can we get up for her hair color, though?
Very fly.
I'll
Whoever
take a
colored your
compliment.
hair.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll take it. You know, it's funny. I never thought of myself as a designer growing up. You know, I was raised by religious Black folks. I was raised in a Pentecostal home, very Pentecostal, and many things that, if I'm quite honest, I'm giving back that was given to me from that experience. But the biggest thing that I keep is how we love our community, how we put in work for them, how we at times put them first, to be quite honest. And I never thought I would be running a political org. Like, if you knew me from back then, I'm saying you would have never guessed. But I've always been really into world building. I've always been really into dreaming something new, problem solving. And when I found design, it was an opportunity to redesign the world, so to speak. I was interested in this concept that our systems, the way we walk down the street, our houses, everything was dreamt up by someone and executed by someone. And I think that it was just so gorgeous to me. And it wasn't until I kind of connected the dots, if I'm quite honest, a couple years ago, in the beginning of the pandemic, I realized that my love for design, my love for world building, my love for visionary organizing was like my life work. Like that's my line, so to speak. I really also want to call in and thank a mentor friend of mine, Lisa Kiki Bates, in the audience. She, when I first moved here in 2014, got me involved in this visionary organizing project called the People's Plan. I was like fresh out of school. I didn't really know what design was. I had all this student loan debt. I was like, I'm moving to Portland, I'm doing work. And we worked with 500 Black folks. We visioned with them, we dreamt with them. We talked about what would Portland look like if they loved Black people? And I think that was the click for me. That was the line that brought design to visionary organizing, to world building all together. Yeah, and I've just been doing that ever since. And I think electoral politics is something that I also thought I would never be into, that it would be my thing. And then I realized again that the world was designed, that these politicians had the power to, with the stroke of the pen, change my life. And I was not satisfied with what they were giving me. And I wanted to push back on them and work with them to design a better world, or replace them to design a better world.
Yeah, that part.
That part, to replace them.
Yeah. And I want to zoom out even a little further before I zoom in with y'all. That's cool. What is freedom dreaming? You know what I mean? Like, let's actually talk about a little bit of that, the Black radical imagination, and in a way that may have impacted you, but also overall, like, what is that? What is that practice? And let's go there before I kind of ask a little bit deeper about the work you've done that has been so creative and imaginative.
I think for me, freedom dreaming is it's about coming together as a community, as a unit, as folks who are like-minded, and not letting this moment of despair stop us, not letting this moment of stress, of all the conditions of this world stop us from working hard to make something new, so to speak. I'm grateful that I grew up in a home that was open to imagination, that was open to using imagination as a tool for love and being in space and community with each other. So for me, freedom dreaming is everything. It fuels me, it keeps me going. It is the act of not being satisfied and digging deep in your soul and finding solutions for the future. That's the shortest way I can. Yeah.
It's powerful.
Yeah. I think it shifts for me, but I feel like it's somehow connected to, Robin mentions a lot in the book the role of surrealism and the surrealists, artists and poets of, different iterations. I think of the negritude poets. I remember the first time someone ever told me I was a surrealist. It was Bob Holman, a poet from New York, and I was on a show with him, a reading at WBAI. Is that what it used to be? New York's radio station. And we were talking, and I had read this poem, and he's like, you remind me of the negritude poets. And I was like,
that's deep.
What's that? And I was like, I was young. I was like 16, 17.
Yeah, you wouldn't know.
I didn't know anything about it. I was like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Remind me of, I wanted to be referred to by the poets of the day.
Right.
And so I looked it up and I started observing. And at first I had, when I came to know about poets, I thought about them for the sake of their craft and what they were doing in their form. Of course, I was attracted to what people were speaking about in the context at which they were writing, but I didn't really get that there were poets a part of movements fully, and that was integral to their practice, was their relationship to social movements. And so I think that for me, freedom dreaming is really this marriage between, the awe and wonder of the interior world and delving into the magic of that world in order to, move and manifest and act in the ways that one desires and one wants to see, to embody, to be full embodiment of one's practice. And I think about, June Jordan and Amy Césaire and Sekou Sundiata. I mean, there's a part where he talks about Sekou.
Yeah, it's really
I think about being brought up by the last poets. I think about all the poets I knew were deeply engaged in action, in shifting and organizing and loving their community. I mean, the way that I got politicized was through Abiodun Oyewole of the last poets. One of the ways I got politicized, and sitting in his living room, which every Sunday he'll feed, the community and artists and poets and all come from all over to eat salmon croquettes. And, while he writes physical poems, the act of opening up his home and feeding people is a poem. It is a poem of love, right? So I think that to me is the freedom dream, and finding ways at which we can embody And I'll end here. I think Rob said this to me. Shout out to Joy's partner, Rob.
Hey.
He said this to me on the phone where he said something like, and I've been using it ever since, okay? I'm just letting you know. Let me know what you need for it. But he said to me that, poetry, I'm paraphrasing, I'm probably gonna paraphrase it horribly, but poetry is the metric of one's merit or skill at their art, so that it's the highest, I guess, relationship you have to your craft. So if you are a dancer, if you dance like a poet, that means you really are, you have a different, you know what that means. I don't even gotta say it, right? If you cook a meal, if you're a chef and you cook like a poet, you know what I mean?
Maybe like poetry in motion.
Yeah, or it's just poetry on the taste buds, right? Or it's like, if somebody's an architect and they design like a poet, I think that when you do things with the energy of poetry, that it is the freedom dreaming.
That's a bar. Yeah. That's so real. That is so real. I'm gonna sit with that. Yeah, thanks for the alley-oop. That's good. There is this. There's this. I'm thinking about some of the narratives of just the history of some of our ancestors, right? I'm gonna lift some up right now, right? So, someone like Claudia Jones, right? You may not know, right? Claudia Jones was a revolutionary from. Yeah, let's teach you. Okay, yeah. So Claudia Jones was probably the most pivotal, in my opinion, pivotal leader of the Communist Party between the 40s and the 50s. She was a phenomenal writer. But one thing that we don't show love to is that she was a poet. You know what I mean? Langston Hughes, we know that Langston Hughes was a poet, but Langston Hughes was also a fierce organizer. We know Lorraine Hasbury as, the famous playwright, but she was an organizer. She was mentored by, the Du Bois family, and those are they chop those stories up, even Audre Lorde, right? We know about her work in a particular way, her poetry in a particular way, but she wrote about revolution. She wrote about, her home. She wrote about other things, right? We may know her for a few things here and there. You may know her as her work around Black feminism and sexuality and so on and so forth, but she was also and so there is this separation of the craft in some kind of way, which we are not actually celebrating the wholeness of our ancestors. So I appreciate you mentioning those things. And the embodiment of freedom dreaming. I want to zoom in just a little bit too, because I think it's important for people to know like a little bit of the intricacies of the work, right? And like some of the impact, right? So some of the work you were doing in Miami with Dream Defenders and
shout out Rachel Gilmer.
Yeah.
She used to work here.
Yeah, I think she helped found it, Imagine Black, I think she told me, with a bunch of other incredible
That's dope.
organizers. So shout out.
Yeah. Word. And then obviously, some of the work that I think that is really incredible with the project with Smoke Signals, and even your solidarity work with Palestine. And then same thing, Joy, right? Like the infusion of freedom dreams. I mean, actually, Imagine Black is actually a new iteration of the organization, which is a practice of freedom dreaming, thinking about how it shifts the mission, the vision, how you do the work. So whoever, I know I'm kind of, but I want to, if y'all can, talk about some of the organizing work, the movement work that y'all have done and how, in relation to freedom dreams. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also want to shout out Rachel again, just if you're watching, thank you. Come back and visit us. Yeah, we went through this process in like 2018 and 19 to shift the organization towards freedom dreaming. Everything that you said, we we're trying to find a way to fuel this work. We were inspired by the People's Plan, inspired by Dream Defenders and BYP 100 and all these other organizations that were doing this work, not, I would say in a different way, but honoring our past, but moving us forward and dreaming at the same time. So we changed our mission. We now help the Black community imagine the alternatives that we deserve. And we build our political participation and leadership to achieve those. And we wanted folks to come to the table and think differently, to not be satisfied with what is given. We wanted folks to think very differently about how we vote and not vote from a place of despair, but pushing back and be unapologetic. We later, staff at the time in 2020, we dreamed of abolition. We moved with the people and probably got us into some trouble. I think people were still mad at us. But we dreamt of a world without prisons. We dreamt of a world without ICE. We dreamt of a world without police. And we use policy, we use civic engagement, we use voting to get us there. We don't believe that voting solely is gonna get us to liberation without organizing, without leadership development, without community. Like, it's empty. So yeah, in practice for us is dreaming up new worlds and getting nerdy with policy and yelling at people when they don't do what we need them to do, and being a community, being with folks. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how, I mean, that's really a part of the tradition, right? Like, there's certain tactics that are just true, right? But that you add in that flavor because it's a different, the way we move is gonna be different. We can't build the same way we did 100 years ago, but there's a lot that is there that we have to continue to it's not linear, right? But we take those things with us, otherwise we're cutting ourselves off from who we are. And so I deeply appreciate and I hope folks who are engaged with Imagine Black understand how difficult it is to shift an organization, actually, and still like censor the people while you do it. It's important.
Yeah, man, speaking in front of people is really hard.
So hard.
Really, no, it is.
There's like, and it's not because I feel uncomfortable. There's just so many things going in my brain. I wish I could share my brain with you guys and not have to say any words. And I know eventually technology, y'all gonna get there, but.
Oh, it's gonna get there.
Let me take that back. I don't want you to do that, but. But it's so brilliant, that it's flickering all over the place. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to say was, I just finished reading in full for the first time, all the way through, because I read excerpts and I would start and stop. Maya Angelou's book, she has many books, but her memoirs were incredible. Many people have not read her memoirs as much as they have her poetry, or, maybe I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, but she has a book called All God's Children Need Traveling Shoes. And in that book, what's crazy about that is that the Maya that would have existed had Malcolm X lived would have been a different Maya, y'all. We don't realize that so much of our history, it's not that it's not that they didn't leave it for us. We just haven't connected the dots. And I think that it's really important because I think a lot of times we get caught up in that narrative, like they don't want to, and it's like, sure, but there were people who, the Black arts movement was bent on creating, books and literature and theater and art and dance and music for us. There's so much available to us. We just have to go seek it, and we will find it. So it's really important to know that whatever you are seeking is seeking you too. And as soon as you decide to find it and to look for it, it will find you. And to not get caught up in what other people tell you are, but to know that people will, you are who you are. You define who you are, right? So, okay, getting back to Maya. Maya was, in the book, she tells the story of being in Ghana, her experience in Ghana and living in Ghana. And it was the first time Malcolm was traveling around the continent to get support to try to take America to task for the atrocities committed against African people in this land, in the U.S. He wanted to get Africa together to go to the UN and try to take America to task. And this was right after he had come back from his pilgrimage and he had just left the nation. He was having all of these epiphanies, right? He was growing before our eyes. And that's another thing, organizers having the ability to grow is part of the freedom dreaming, the ability to evolve and to look back and reflect and see the parts where, you know, maybe being so militant here wasn't as thinking, it wasn't as future thinking as maybe he didn't have the foresight, right? A lot of our revolutionaries and the people that we look at and we praise, a lot of them didn't get to live past 30.
Yeah, it's wild.
Right? So what does that mean? Who would they have been had they gotten to live longer? And then how would that have shifted our entire movement? Yeah. What things could we have dreamed of together? What other dreams would have been born of just living long enough? Yeah. To see some shifts in your community and to love your children, to watch them raise. What lessons Malcolm would have learned had he watched his children grow up? I know. What lessons would they have taught him about the man he was waiting to become? So all these things I think about, and I say that to say that Malcolm had come to Ghana, and Maya was one of the people to try to help him get situated and connect him to the right leaders in Ghana. And she had seen the state of the country. She had left, and she was trying to find some peace, some place that she could call home. And seeing Malcolm reinvigorated her to want to come back home and help. And he actually specifically requested that she come back home and said that we need you, sister, we need you back home. And so she had made this case that she was going to come back home. I say that to say that, like, that was eye-opening for me because, you know, you talked about certain poets that were a part of the movement. You know, Maya was there, so was Ntozake Shange. She was a secretary for SNCC for several years. People don't know that. I mean, there's so many little nuggets of wisdom and history that had we known them, who would we be if we knew those things? So I say that to say, as I'm learning these things, I was bringing them to our organizers, being like, did you know this? And did you know this? And we got to read this. And in my mind, I thought, like, if we could get together, because when I hear the elders from SNCC, you know, Cortland and Charlie Cobb and all of them, and they talk to us, they say, you know, we were all hungry. We were so hungry that we would stay up late at night just reading and debating and going over ideas. And I feel like that in some ways was lacking in some of the spaces I saw. Yeah. And I think that people read in isolation and they go on Twitter and then they talk about how much they know, but the real metric of your knowledge, I think, is in how you share and debate and argue ideas and strengthen your ideas and say, well, did you think about this and did you think about that? And that's what I love about Robin. You know, Robin revisits the book with a new introduction, and in that revision, he talks about, well, I was blind in these spots. Yeah. These are the spots that maybe I didn't think deeply enough about. I didn't think about gender enough. I didn't think about, you know, indigenous practices, and I didn't, maybe I thought of them, I graced over them, but I didn't include them in this conversation that I should have. Yeah. And I think that when you're in true debate and critical discourse with people you love, with your comrades, that's what stretches the imagination. That's where the freedom dreaming starts to grow. And that's where we started to organize from, was in that our home became a space where people would come after community organizing meetings, and I would see that there was internal conflict about, you know, this and that, and people had ideas about this, and folks felt everybody was feeling some type of way, but nobody was able to communicate it. So here we are on the front lines, ready to go in front of the police and put our lives on the line, but you can't tell your comrade, hey, you know what you said hurt me, and this is how, and this is what I would like to see, and can't, you know. So I think that part of my way of dealing with conflict resolution was to go towards what I knew, which was poetry. The poetry workshop space was the place that saved me. And I thought, well, what would it look like if our organizers had access to the creative process as a way of expressing, as a way of thinking through and imagining, as a way of not just art for the sake of producing a product for someone to consume,
Right.
but the actual artistic practice and process was part of how we organize our people. And that's what came to grow Smoke Signals and Poetry for the People. And
That's so dope. Yeah. If y'all not familiar with some of these, if you're not familiar with Smoke Signals, it's not, y'all still operating Smoke Signals?
we're envisioning.
Okay, yeah, which is, you know what I mean? But yes, if you are creative and you think about movement and organizing, and I think it's a really great example of freedom dreaming for sure. Something you mentioned around, it's really, I want to say this little piece. It really is sad to not see like Malcolm with grandkids, you know what I'm saying? Or like, for them to experience what it's like to be an elder. Like, I'm 34, and I'm like, dang. You know what I'm saying? You transitioned before. I'm like, just think who you were in your 20s. You know what I'm saying? And in like your early 30s or wherever stage you're at, and you're like, dang, that they really didn't make it that long. Like, when you really, anyway, I'm not going to harbor on that because it's actually really sad. But I am thinking about that, like, wow, right? Like, there's these important stages in our lives, in the relationships we have with our elders, right? Like, for them to not have that experience with them is rough. It was something else you mentioned, and it's passing me by. I'm also thinking about time. Yeah.
We looking at people. We got a little bit.
Okay.
We're a little over, but
Okay.
Yeah.
feel free if folks have to do what you need to do to take care of yourself.
I think I want to pull from the book again.
Please.
Just maybe this last piece here. You want to say something?
I was just going to say that for the organizers in the room, like, I want us to be encouraged by, and the artists, to see that neither are, they're not separate.
Yes.
And that, one of the reasons why we also did what we did, one day I'm going to write about all we did because it's so much, but one of the reasons why we did what we did was because a lot of our artists were being hired by corporations. And so what we saw happening was that the same way that, America takes the brightest and the best of all over the world and brings them into schools and colleges and, we call it brain drainage, right? That we saw that happening in our communities, and that, artists are some of the most brilliant people in society. If you look at, I encourage you all to, JFK has a famous speech where he spoke on Robert Frost, and he talks about poets and writers and artists. And then I think a country and a society that does not honor its artists or its poets is in a grave state, right? That does not, and that does not leave room for the truths and the testimonies that only artists and poets can make, right? That then democracy is truly at risk, right? So I think about that, and I just want us to acknowledge that part of what we were doing and why we were organizing the way that we were was also seeing that there were so many gifts that our organizers had, and oftentimes organizing is seen as this very rigid, I don't know how you feel about this, Joy, but it's always seen as this rigid thing where it's like, okay, we got to get this many people, these are the members, we got to get everybody, this is the policy, this is, our agenda, this is our campaign, this is a strategy for it. Can sometimes feel draining, and also not, that people feel like they can't bring their full selves all the time. And that's what I was noticing at the time that which we were organizing. And so, sometimes we would get upset at somebody because they're not canvassing, or they don't have the language skills or whatever it is that other people do, and they're not knocking on enough doors or whatever it may be. But I think what we were trying to get at was like, what are your strengths? What are the things that actually animate you? What makes you excited? And how do we pull that into our work? Because if we don't pull that, you become susceptible to being picked up by somebody else who will pull that and who will use that and who will find the beauty in what you can do and then profit off of it and exploit it and use it to actually make our work harder. So, and if you look at what's happening with corporations and companies now, like they're becoming more and more inclusive, more and more creative about how they're selling us things, right? And that's because of y'all. Right? It's because of the brilliance of the artists and the creativity and the imagination of your storytelling and your freedom dreaming. And so what we were thinking was, how do we make that a part of our organizing strategy? How do artists see themselves as organizers and organizers see themselves as artists?
I want to riff. I love that so much. It reminds me of a mentor of mine who always says, organizing is both an art and a science. And if you lean too science to the point, you do miss the human aspect of it. You miss the connection. And I know so many creatives who are working at these corporations, these advertising agencies, who wishes they could be full-time artists, who wants to be in this space more, but their image making is limited to, I don't know, deodorant or whatever they're selling.
Not deodorant.
I know that was a trigger for me.
Deodorant. Oh, let me see that.
I was having a trigger moment. There was a time I had a small moment in advertising actually, and it sucked my soul. It was hard for me. I got a chance to work as a strategist on, well, not saying where, but I got a chance to work on a strategist team that was around feminism, that was around movements. And in my heart, I thought I was going to be able to bring my full self. And then I remember where I'm at, what I'm doing. I'm in this corporate place that is sucking this information and using it for profit. And it didn't feel good. It felt awful. And I'm going on a rant now and a trigger moment. But these spaces aren't, I think it was Angela Davis who said these diversity, these equity and inclusion policies are difference that doesn't make a difference. We're bringing these people in to change something, but we're not allowing them to do that work. And it hurts your soul.
And I think if you're not, sometimes we would, I remember I used to be mad because we would, when you make a lot of sacrifices and you're used to kind of taking a lot of risks, especially, you did talk about this, but I didn't get to bring this up, but we did a lot around Palestine. Mm-hmm. And our delegations, Dream Defenders, the delegations that we helped organize and facilitate was a huge part of the cultural shift and conversation for the movement to liberate Palestinians from the state of Israel. And when I think about the importance of, taking a stand and deciding to make certain sacrifices because you take that stand, sometimes you can get salty. When you see your friends over there rising up the ladder of success, and they over here stunting what they knew, then they buying houses and they winning awards and they getting accolades, and you still got your debt and you still sitting over here trying to get this little thing off the ground. You know what I mean? You got to have compassion for the reality of where people are and the material conditions that they're living, right? And so I think when we look at people's rage and anger, I think we often sit and say, well, they shouldn't be angry, or why they're angry. You take offense to it rather than seeing it as real pain and trauma and understanding that it's love unaffirmed, you know what I mean? And that when we can acknowledge that people truly are doing this work on the ground, right? And giving and creating more access. I think it's crazy to me that we don't talk enough about how movements in the past were also funded, not just by, I guess, community outreach, et cetera, but there were specific strategic decisions that people made, people who were in high positions, to reappropriate funds, to redistribute funds from their successes and their awards and their accolades. That doesn't get talked about enough. You think about Harry Belafonte, Marlon Brando, and all these other people who really put money into the movement, who made sure, because it costs money to take a stand. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. People can't pay their basic, need. So I understand. I think there's no judgment of people who decide to take certain decisions in order to feed, support their family, et cetera. You go work for these different companies. But I think the problem that we found was, how do we create the alternative so that folks can find ways to be supported within our work, and that so that those who decided to take those positions or to go off and do those things, that they were also completely involved and invested in the work we were doing and understood the toll it took on our lives, and on the actual sustainability of families, entire families. And this is why people got lost in despair and depressed and suicidal, and we lost so many organizers, was because folks couldn't pay their bills. They couldn't pay their bills.
No health care,
and they're watching
retirement plans.
They're watching people, take interviews on magazine covers and walk around, I mean, this is real. It is a real part of our reality, right? So I think when we think about, this goes back to the art and cultural shifting, that yes, we need to shift popular culture, and so go and take certain positions to shift that culture. However, let's not forget that this is blood money.
It's all blood money.
It's blood money, y'all.
This foundation money is blood money.
So I think I can go on forever, but I just want to acknowledge that, the work that we did was about how can we really shift the culture for our people, and to make it so that art was seen as a part of the organizing, and to know and look at history and see how artists have been used and weaponized against the people, because this government understands very well, the role that art plays in our society and in the politics of the day now. And if you think that you're above politics, let me tell you something. Every time you go to pay your bills, that's political. Every time you pay your phone bill, every time you pay your water and gas and you pay your rent, all that's political, right? Politics is just about the distribution of economics, of resources. And so what we're saying as people who care about our communities is we all deserve to have a say in how those resources are distributed, and the most vulnerable of us should be fought for and should have the access to the basic human decency and needs.
I say. And I'm gonna have to transition this weekend. There's so much I wanna break bread about. I wanna talk about Maroons. I wanna talk about so much. How y'all feeling?
This album. I want to talk about some
how
things
y'all
that are
feel?
happening.
Do any of you have questions? That's what I'm
Yeah, that's what
wondering.
we're about to move to.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Let's move to that. So we're gonna move to some Q&A. So
There's mics up front
Who got
for you.
mics?
If you have questions, if you're able to.
Yeah, on each side.
On
so
each side, yes.
On the aisles, on the east side.
Please.
If you have questions.
And if you're not able, if you can put your hand up, we can also pass mics to you. I know, so quiet. Oh. I see you, Nikki.
Go ahead, take your time, but if you got some questions, please.
I just want to keep talking.
We got a question here. Right on.
Not necessarily a question, just a shout out, just to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys. Seriously. Good evening, everybody. My name is Rowan. I live across the water, your next door neighbor. But yeah, I just want to give a heartfelt thank you, honestly, seriously, for you guys putting this on together and stuff like that, and sharing this space so we can actually, continue to build community, because I do like how you guys spoke to community that's part of it, especially these last few years kind of being in isolation. I think community is really important to kind of progress things forward and move things in the right direction. So thank you guys. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
I know one of y'all got a question. Come on now. It's itching. Let this be the thing to affirm you. Come on. All right, that's fine.
We got Okay, hold on. There we go.
All right, well, with that affirmation, aloha, and Miss Aja Monet, this question is for you. I'm curious about your editing process with your poetry, because that flow just feels so like, like, you know, like I feel like there like must not be any kind of editing process, because that must all just be like coming at you rapid fire. And so I am curious, you know, if there is an editing process, what that may look like for you, and how you know when to edit, and so many things. So mahalo for that. And Ms. Joy, I apologize for excluding you from that question. I know you like to sit back and just listen, so there you go. Mahalo, thank you.
Well, I wonder what you feel about this, Joy, in terms of how you approach life. But thank you for that question. That's a great question. I love that sound effect that you just gave me. Da 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 da. You know, that was so great. It felt like very scatting, and that's what I dream to do with my poems. But the thing that I'll say is, sometimes a poem will come like water. Sometimes it'll come like fire. Sometimes like wind. Sometimes it's dusty. Okay. It has, sometimes there's cobwebs I gotta get through, I gotta figure it out. You know, it's always, every poem has its own way of being born and will show you how it likes to be born. And I think that it reveals itself to you as you obey the call to create, you know? And so I think for me, I always tell when I'm doing workshops with other writers and poets, I always tell them that you have to let it flow first, because you can't edit what is being called to be written, right? That's like blasphemy. You have to first let it out. You can't edit it before, is what I mean. You have to first let it out. And then I think the revision process is really the editing process, and the revision is really about a revisioning, a way of seeing something new, anew. And so it's revisiting and coming back to it with a new eye, and letting it go and letting it breathe for a minute, and then coming back to it and saying, what is this? Usually I like to have, when you talk about the flow, it's important to also note that I like to have a music stand when I perform often, and that's because I want people to know that what I'm doing is music. And I think that it's important that I see the poem, I see the words, I see the poem as sheet music. So it's less about a specific way of editing it, even though that is it. But sometimes the poem will dance in your mouth a new way every time it comes off your tongue. So you might have an idea at first about how the poem is, and there's a way that it shows up on the page, but then there's something that's in you that can call towards it, you know, the word being, putting a little bit more emphasis on the word this time, and sometimes letting it go here. And you have to kind of feel it out the way you would feel out your instrument, right? So I think that's part of maybe what you're hearing, is that every word has a vibration. Jane Cortez was really big on this, who Robin talks about in the book, and Sekou. But Jane really talked about, she has a book called Mouth on Paper, which I love, because literally putting the mouth on the page, right? And she's trying to struggle with that difference between what we do with our mouth and what we do on the page as writers. And so I think that that's part of my relationship to editing is I look back and I say, if how it sounds when I say it doesn't sound right, then I got it, something's off, and I got to go back until it sounds right. I read everything out loud when I'm editing, and then when a line sounds right for me, then I'm like, okay, these words stay here. But if it doesn't sound right, I start to tease out the words from there. But Joy, how do you feel like, what's your way of revising in life?
I'm so stuck on everything that you said. How poetic. Like, I love being next to poets. Like, even when you're riffing, I was like, the dust, the wind. I was like, is this, are you giving us poetry? Yeah, I think,
When you're trying to make changes to some plans
yeah.
and look differently at how you're strategizing or designing something, what is your process of that?
I think I am, not on a broken record, but I like editing with people. I love a Google Doc. I want to write some things.
Ooh, you're that
and
person.
I want someone to come in and change some things. And yeah, I like to do it with folks. I like there's a vulnerability about it that I think I like. I like feeling like I got it and someone telling me like, actually no, let's expand.
Yeah.
It's weird. I think I like a editor. Yeah.
I want to say too that that's so beautiful because finding a good editor, that's such a gift. It's like a romance. It's literally finding your man. It's finding a husband or a wife or just a partner. It's finding somebody that's like, you are mine, I am yours, and we get each other. And that's really hard to find.
Oh, it is. I do want to give a shout out to my husband. He is my editor. Like, he probably knows way too much.
Shout out, Rob.
Shout out to Rob. He taught me about design. He introduced me to this work. He made this flyer for this event. But is often in the middle of the night, I'm like, look at this sentence. Does this even make sense? Or take a look, get in this Google Doc. The amount of ghostwriting this man has done for this organization, I don't know if he would ever want people to know, probably.
And people forget, like Toni Morrison, James Baldwin, like all these great writers that you sit and read, like, don't get it twisted. Them words didn't just come out flat out their head like that. They had incredible editors who worked with them. Ntozake Shange, like all these people, they had people who collaborated and really worked through these ideas. So thank you for that question about editing. It's really important.
Hi, thank you so much. Love your words, all of you, all three. Just to go talk more directly to Black liberation and Black radical imagination, I think to just speak like locally and directly, like we have this huge, right, collective experience that we have that we can all define under these ideas and concepts. So like speaking in Portland, as Black folks here in Portland, how would you explain, like if you to other people, or can you start like that dialogue of what that looks like in Portland now and how you imagine it going and where do you see it going here in our community?
Yeah, I can start and pass it. I've always been taught, again, like so much collective, but it's finding your home, finding your people, I think, first. I think we all know, especially as Black folks or brown folks in this state, that it can be incredibly isolating and lonely. And when you find your folks, you hold on to them. So I've always been taught to find your political home, find your folks that you want to debate with, that you mentioned before, that you're interested in wrestling with, and that you're comfortable with messing up and being held accountable and growing. And I think I dream of a world where we can grow together, like you mentioned before, and be held accountable to it. I do like to start with, if Portland loved you, what would it look like? That's just my baseline. I want to know what your day would look like. Some people are very literal. They're like, I'm walking down the street, I'm drinking my chai tea, I'm not being harassed, I can cross the street because cars will stop for me, because they don't do that here for Black people. So I like to start with some like direct, let's talk about your day, let's talk about what feels good, and then move them into a space where we're able to work together to collectively build the power to make that world a reality. I talk about what self-determination means in this concept that we should be able to shape our environment. That is our right as humans. We should be able to do that. So I would say if you're down, join us, join Imagine Black. We have a membership. We have folks that come together and wrestle with things and mess up together and learn from each other and demand more. I mean, there are consequences, like mentioned before. People get upset, but then you get to know your people even more. Yeah.
It's so important to join an organization. Like, if you don't do anything and you don't know where to start, join an organization. Yeah, I'll just say that. I'm not from here. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. Yeah.
Okay, Ohio.
But I think, the place to start is always, there's many places to start, but I think when you start, you realize like how deeply unimaginative you've been, how deeply unimaginative we may have been, you know what I mean? And starting from that place, we start the imagination process from a point of limitation, right? A point of ceiling, or floor, right? And we forget that there's more than that. We forget that there is, and so I think it's always important to start from a place where you can just imagine, right? Think about like what's possible, because everything is possible. A lot of times we have been losing the battle of ideas, and so we are living out the imagination, the practice, the policies of not an individual, but an ideology, right? That could be a liberal ideology, which we are pretty much dominated by right now. But we can imagine more. We can do more, which we have. I think it's also the assumption that something hasn't been done. What we do is not particularly new. It's a continuum. And so, when I think back, or when I'm in Columbus, doing the work, whether it's organizing or we're doing, we are supporting Black artists and creatives, we always do it from a place where we are centralizing the ideas of Black liberation, but not rigid. Something is always anew. There's discipline and commitment, but something anew, right? And doing it with an organization or community is how you do better. You know what I mean? How the work survives. The going into going into a cabin for a weekend by yourself to write a book. I don't want to read that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I want to read like where you've been with people to write this thing. Your experience because of the world, not in isolation, but with people too, right? I want, so even with your artwork or your creativity, right, there is, yes, I have to write the thing myself, but there's the editor, everything is a collaborative process. When we try to isolate everything from that, it is something else.
Yeah, it kind of becomes a dictatorship. I was going to say that I'm not from here, but ain't none of us from here. I want to lift up indigenous folks of this land and just say that being in solidarity is probably some of the most important work we will ever do for the liberation of all of us. And, while I believe in Black liberation, I believe in the word liberation for all people. And I believe that as we are liberated, so are our brothers and sisters from all the tribes, nations, identities, nationalities, et cetera. And I think that if we're not in solidarity with people, if we're not building a movement that is fundamentally about how we show up in solidarity with others, especially those who differ from us in the way that they look, the way that they speak, the way that they imagine and envision the world, then we're failing our ideas of liberation. So I think Joy mentioned something about, she said something that I think there's like 100,000. How
90,
many?
A little over 90K.
90K Black
in
people
the
here.
state of Black people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you really want to like change something, either you're gonna have to be in a little island by yourself, away from all the white people, right? Or leave, right? Or stay and struggle and fight with people who believe in the vision and the dream of the world you want to see, and to organize around that vision and that dream. And we need collaborators, we need co-conspirators, we need people who are our comrades, we need people that we know, they know what we need, and they know how our needs are in alignment with their needs, right? And so I think, for the white folks in the room or people who identify as white, sorry, it was a funny thought. So I'm like, wait, what else would they identify? But sorry, there's Rachel Dolezal. But I say that to say we need co-conspirators. You all are going to need to figure out, all of us, and on a local level, and need to figure out. And then also, something else we learned is that, for me, being in Africa and spending a lot of time in Africa lately has really shifted what I see as Black, or the conversation of Blackness as a politic has really, I'm still working through that. I'm still trying to understand what does that mean, because a lot of what I've seen being used in America is that what does Black liberation mean to you is what has to be a question here. Does that mean more visible positions of access? Does that mean more Black mayors? Does that mean more Black doctors? Does that mean more Black museum owners? What does it look like? And if so, if we don't change the function of the thing, and we just change the complexion of the person who is in the position of the thing that we're talking about, I don't know if that's liberation, and we've conflated that as liberation often. So I think being in community and being in conversation with your people about what are your values, what are we organizing around, what are our values, and who's in alignment with our values, that's who we're fighting with. In Haiti, when they were fighting for the revolution, Haitians fought for the revolution, and they said, whoever is fighting for the revolution is henceforth considered Black. It did not matter the color of your skin. It mattered, are you about this revolution or not? And that was the determining factor of whether or not you were Black, right? And that changes over time. Who becomes Black when? And when is it convenient for somebody to be Black and not be Black, right? That shifts. So I think our politics have to always be rooted and grounded in our values and what we really mean by liberation. What do we want to see? And then to organize that. If you can make a meal, you can organize, right? If you can throw a party, you can organize, right? If you could walk some dogs, you can organize. If you can, curl some hair, you can organize. And so figuring out organizing. Organize your people around the values and the things that you want to see in your community. I think we can end there. There's one more question. Okay, you're the last one.
I'm looking at my people. Okay, just real quick. Do you want to?
Oh, look at technology. So I'm wondering, in light of just like understanding imagination, right? I think the environment shapes it, and you talked about the tangibles and the intangibles. And I'm wondering, what is it, particularly for y'all, that y'all need to be able to reimagine? Because I think there's that space that we're in that can block that creativity or suppress it. When you said it was there, it's there if we're in the right spaces. So I'm wondering, like what gets you out of the box that we cling so desperately to.
So many things. What do we need? I think it's important to remember that the opposition wants us to quit, and will do anything and everything to get us to quit, whether it is switching funding up, so now you have to do three different jobs with one person, and whether it's, actively, literally putting their bodies and weapons toward, like, they want us to quit. And what I dream of and what we need is, I wish we had more resources to hire more people to do this work. That's like my first, because this work is draining, it is hard, and it is, if you don't do it right, it can be very unhealthy, if I'm quite honest. I was taught I'm thinking about like my life back in the church, but to give, and you need to also take care of yourself. You need to know that your comrade has your back, that you can step away for weeks and things will keep going, that when someone calls you at midnight and said they're getting evicted and you show up for them, that the next day you're taking care of yourself because that work is draining. So I think for me, it's people power. I was taught organizing is about moving people towards power. And I think you can only do that with folks. You can only do that with resources, not only, but like it helps. And I don't think just money, like people, that's a resource. Having designers who work for those fancy jobs come in and make a flyer or participate. I'm getting off on a tangent, but to me, I think it's just people coming together and willing to hold each other long enough, even when we have moments of pain or moments where we're unclear of what to do next and when we're tired. But yeah.
People, you know what I'm saying? I join an organization, particularly Imagine Black.
Plug.
So you say, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like to get those things, you know what I mean? To get better workers' rights, to shift power, to all those things, to shift culture, it's people. And we need people to join the organization and so we can have those things. I'm gonna leave it that simple. We need.
Yes. Ooh, I got some plugs for y'all. Do you have anything to add before I plug? Go to imagineblack.org. But also, I would say is that we have a membership program for Black folks called Kinfolk. Come be kinfolk with us. Come work with us. Come have fun with us. We're about to get this beautiful space, y'all. I keep talking about it. I'm looking at my fundraising person. I keep mentioning it, but come be in a radical space where you can be yourself and we can fight together and we can love each other and we can eat good food. If you're not a Black person, we have an accomplice space for you. We are ready for folks who have already done like the trainings, they've done their tiers, they've done the things and they're ready to put in work. And there's 90,000 Black folks in Oregon. I think that is an achievable organizing goal. But like mentioned, we need our comrades, we need our accomplices, and I invite you to join us. If you take a look on this little flyer, where is this? You all should have got this in your book. There's a little QR code if you would like to donate. We do need resources to keep this work going. If you go to imagineblack.org, you can also find ways to plug in. Yeah. Well, I'm rants and plugs. Can I do some thank you and some gratitude? I want to look over here and look at this beautiful piece that was made during this conversation. I want to thank you for all your hard work, your labor, your vision. This is beautiful. We're going to get copies of this sent to all of y'all digitally so that you can do what you need with it. Hang it up, print it, hit us up if you need printer ideas. Like, please take this with you. I want to thank the folks. Like, I just wanted to listen too. I was like, just tell me more. We definitely need to bring you back. I know you have an album coming out soon. Please be on the lookout.
I was gonna say music. Music is so important. Robin talks a lot in the book about music, and I think live music is really important as well. So creating space for musicians to play. Mm-hmm. We talk a lot about, different ways that people are trying to find resources, but it's also hard for musicians to continue to play if they don't, if they can't pay their bills, and also if they're not taken seriously as workers of liberating people. So finding ways to bring music, live music, into your space, into your home, into your life, I think is a really powerful way to be inspired, to reimagine. That's why we brought people at Smoke Signals. We did jam sessions, and that was a big way we organized people, was creating that fire, that bonfire, and bringing everybody around that fire and dancing and laughing. And what I described in the book was us creating space for music to spark the people's spirits and get people right, because it's in us, you know what I mean? So getting things out of your body, expressing through your body, finding ways, because sometimes we be in here too much. In the movement, we be in here too much. So finding ways to Yeah, you know, finding ways to express yourself and love making. You know, them little liberation babies need to be born. Love making. Take care of them. You know, love on them. Give them the love they deserve. But I just say that to say love making is a radical act. Do it. You know, and especially people who don't even make babies together. Go ahead. Have fun. Go wild. We get free through your loving, you know? Watching you love on each other, and love, I mean really love each other, fine? And it don't gotta be romantic for it to be love, I'm just saying. Don't be mad about life all the time. Sometimes you need to sit back, have a little drink, turn on the juke joint, you know what I'm saying? Shake the hips. Twerk go do what you gotta do, but get loose and feel yourself be alive by doing that. So I just want to encourage as part of that. Yeah, good night, y'all. Good night. Thank you.
I'm gonna switch it up. We have a few minutes left if you would like your book signed. I was gonna move us to a different room, but maybe we just do it.
Oh, I was saying that, sorry, to say that I have an album coming out. I forgot
yes,
that part.
I
I
forgot
always
too.
forget. There's music coming
Plugs.
next year, and the reason why I just thought it, because she said to sign the book. I also have a book of poetry. But if you want to look up and find all those things, I'm all over everywhere on the internet. So I hope to hear from you. I hope to come back, and next time I hope when I come back, I'm doing music.
Yeah, you are. Well, thank you,
Thank
y'all.
you, Joy.
Thank you. You need a book signed. Come on up.